I'm Bob McClure, and I'm a pickle expert. Woo! Okay, so I'm going to open up jar A here and take a look. So the first thing I notice is the brine, and this is like very yellow. It's very tinted, which to me indicates that it's got something in it that is making it that yellow color. Normal brines that are like a distilled vinegar, water, and salt don't have that additive in it. But I do see some of the cucumbers, they've been chopped off. So that's an interesting thing that manufacturers, they usually cut off the top so that they can pack it in the jar and that it doesn't stick out and stuff like that. I would say that smaller manufacturers probably don't go through that process because it's an extra step. It smells pretty good. So it smells like a natural product. There's nothing jumping out at me that says, calcium chloride or potassium sorbate or anything like that that's in it. It smells vinegary. It smells like a dill pickle. So dill is a pretty common weed that has been used for centuries for flavoring food, pickling. You can make it with fish dishes. It's a spice, so it adds flavor to food. And you can use it fresh out of your garden, or you can dry it, and you can use the seeds to add flavoring. I'm going to open this one up and check it out. So this one's got a cloudy brine. That's really interesting. Usually when you see a cloudy brine, you're looking at two different types of pickles. The cloudy brine is a fermented product, one that generally goes in the cooler or the refrigerated section of the stores, and ones with a clearer brine, they go through a heating process, a cooking process that lets them sit on your shelf or in your pantry for a long period of time. For a fermented pickle, you're actually exposing the cucumber to the natural microbes that are in the air. The microbes start to eat the salt and start to generate more microbes and more bacteria. And that lactic acid is what gives it the sour taste. And that takes usually anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. So if you've had pickles in the past and you've come across the terms, new dill, half sour, full sour, 3/4 sour, that's dealing with specifically fermented pickles. And much like beer or wine, it takes time for that to occur. I'm going to smell the brine in Pickle B here. This definitely smells like a fermented brine, which typically don't contain any vinegar at all in them. But it does smell good. It smells like a good pickle. So we're going to go ahead and dive into Pickle A here and take a bite. Again, it smells like a normal dill pickle. So it definitely tastes like a vinegar pickle to me. There's nothing too strong on the front end. I don't taste anything chemically, but the thing that's throwing me off is the yellow. So that generally tells me that it may be done by a larger manufacturer that's looking to preserve or extend shelf life. Also mention that the pickle is fairly flimsy, right? It's cut at both ends. It's not like crunchy, which is what you're going to want in any pickle. So if I'm really I'm bending this thing and it's not really, going anywhere. You can also actually see right here, it's a little bit kind of translucent, like glassy looking and gray. Either that could be like an older pickle, it may have sat on the shelf too long, or it just could be like a lower quality cucumber to start with. So here's Pickle B. Interestingly enough, it doesn't have its ends cut like Pickle A does. So this is generally indicating to me that, this is probably a smaller manufacturer. That's good. There's more water balance in there than I taste in Pickle A than in Pickle B. When you're making up your brine, it's a mix of vinegar, water, and salt, right? And depending on the ratio of the vinegar, water, and salt, you're going to get different flavors. And finding that perfect balance is, from my perspective, what you're looking for in a pickle. So these are definitely two dill pickles. They're just very different dill pickles. Pickle A is a shelf-stable pickle that has vinegar brine in it. That gives it a very acidic, tangy, upfront taste. And Pickle B is a fermented pickle that just uses salt and water and perhaps maybe a little bit of vinegar at the finish. If I were to guess, I would say that Pickle A is the more mass-produced, lower cost pickle, and Pickle B is the more expensive version of the two. Okay, so let's find out. All right, $3.29 a quart and $9.32 a quart. It doesn't surprise me because, again, I can tell from in Pickle A, I can see the cuts are very uniform, and usually small manufacturers can't do that. So a larger manufacturer can generally do that, and their production capacity is going to be much higher than a smaller manufacturer, which is generally going to cost more and usually translate to a higher price on shelf. Pickle B, I noticed that it's a fermented brine. It has, probiotics and fermentation in it, which means that it takes more time. If you lean more towards a fermented flavor and taste, Pickle B would be the choice that you would go with. But my taste preferences lean more towards Pickle A, which is a vinegar pickle. It has more tang up front. It's what I'm used to and what I like. I do wish that there were better quality cucumbers and no additive ingredients that elongated the shelf life unnaturally. But I do like this flavor profile. So here are 2 jars of what appear to be spicy pickles. Let's see what it's like. Oh yeah, lots of yellow juice coming out of that pickle jar. So this one smells like it's definitely a vinegar pickle. I do smell like a lot of dried dill, and that is like a scent that you will definitely notice if you smell fresh dill versus dried dill. So I look at this and I see there are spear cuts and there are half cuts in there, which means that the cucumber is going to be firmer. It's just a bigger cut of pickle right there, and it's going to be crunchier. I also notice a lot of fresh inclusions. So there's fresh dill in this one, and there's a fresh hot pepper in there, which is going to be more expensive to buy as a manufacturer. Again, because it goes bad quicker. The fresh ingredients usually cost more money. So I'm going to open it and smell it as well. This definitely has a more vinegar smell, and I smell apple cider vinegar. Apple cider is going to smell more sweet off the nose. It smells more fresh, and I'll show you what that dill weed looks like. So right here, it looks kind of like a piece of seaweed or something like that. But when it's dry, it looks like a flower. When it's fresh, it looks like a flower. But that dill right there is going to give it a nice fresh flavor. So I'm going to try both pickles and see what we get. Yeah, so definitely a yellow pickle. This is a spear pickle. Pickles will come in all different types of cuts, and they could be whole, they could be sliced, they could be speared, they could be slabbed for hamburgers. This looks like a pretty non-crunchy pickle, but we'll see. We'll see how spicy it is too, because that's what the type of flavor profile that we're dealing with here. It's got a little kick. That's nice. It's not overpowering, so it's flavored nicely with its spice. It's way salty, but I do like the spice because it's not overpowering. It's certainly in my opinion, over salted to get me to want to eat more product. So this one is actually really interesting. Some of the pickles aren't, as I mentioned earlier, they're not speared. There's actually one, kind of big chunk right up top, right? So that's indicating to me that this is more of a handmade product. So this one's hot, very hot. It's got a habanero pepper in it. This too has a lot of sodium content in it, but it's not bad. It's not overpowering like Pickle A is. What I noticed in Pickle B is that it's using a habanero pepper, which is a very hot pepper. So if you're shopping, for a spicy pickle and you have a low spice tolerance, a habanero pickle is going to be probably way too hot for you. So you can look at this pepper and know, stay away from this. When it's cut in half like that, it opens up all the oils, the hot oils that are in the pepper, and it gets them throughout the jar. And it gets them up to spice very, very quick. So this manufacturer can make a fresh product, have it be spicy very quick, and then it'll still be crunchy on the shelf. Whereas what I see in Pickle A is chopped ingredients. They could be dehydrated, and it's probably very uniform. The spice is very balanced, so I do like the spice in this. One thing you'll notice in Pickle B is that this cucumber is actually like cut in half compared to Pickle A's cucumber, which have their ends cut off and look pretty uniform. This is Pickle B's cucumber is going to be crunchier because it's more whole and more fully intact. So if I were to take a guess, I would have to say that Pickle B is the more expensive version, and Pickle A is the lower cost version of these two pickles. Okay, $3.72 on Pickle A and $10.65 on Pickle B. So in Pickle A, there were some things that I really did like. I liked the flavor profile of the brine, which is again the vinegar, water, and salt in there, and I certainly really liked the spice. It wasn't overpowering. Pickle A has a really nice balance for those who, might want something a little bit more mild, but it is certainly very high in the sodium content. So if you're watching your sodium, or if you prefer to have less salt, I would go towards Pickle B. For a spicy pickle, this is a fantastic balance. It's not over salted, and you're going to enjoy it, especially if you put it on a sandwich or eat them right out of the jar. Great, so we've got 2 more pickle jars here. So I definitely smell like maple syrup, or it is kind of oaky in its flavor. The cucumbers are pretty uniform in size, which leads me to think that it might be more of a larger manufacturer. If Pickle A is a larger manufacturer that's adding like a bourbon style to it or a maple style, they're probably not going to be using real maple syrup or real bourbon. They're going to use like an extract or something that's more of a formulation of that to get that flavoring. Whereas, Pickle B, I see that there's, a fresh habanero in there. I noticed that the cucumber sizes are varying in size. I do smell maple. I do smell something that's like oaky in it. Now, if it's a smaller manufacturer, they very well may be using real bourbon or a real maple syrup that is going to drive up the cost and thereby be more expensive, and hopefully more flavorful too. So I'm gonna taste Pickle A first. So it's definitely very sweet. It tastes like maple syrup. It's kind of oaky, so it may have some kind of bourbony flavor to it or flavoring. The cayenne pepper here, as I mentioned, is a really nice flavored pepper. It's not too hot and it's not too mild, but the flavoring definitely tastes very heavy on the maple, so I can't really tell if that's real maple syrup or flavoring or bourbon flavoring or something like that, but it's pretty heavy on that end. And let's try Pickle B here. The habanero is really hot, so that's taking a lot of the flavoring away. I can't really taste much in terms of a story and a balance, but that's not to say that it is less expensive or more expensive. It could just be the way the balance of the brine is tasting and the pepper is interacting with the rest of the spices in the jar. I see this Pickle B having less uniformity in terms of its cuts, more fresh inclusions in it than I am in Pickle A. In Pickle A, I see some dried spices, I see a lot of uniformity, and I'm tasting more flavoring type. And if it was real, then I would say it'd be a very expensive product. If it turns out that this is the less expensive one, then I will say it's definitely a flavoring that is going in there and probably not the real deal. So if I were to guess, I would say Pickle B is the more artisanal, higher cost one, and Pickle A is the lower cost, more mass-produced pickle. $3.84 for Pickle A and $15.98 for Pickle B. So there's a huge price difference between Pickle A and Pickle B. Pickle B, they're probably going to be using the real deal. They're going to be using real bourbon, real maple syrup, and even though it is more expensive, I do like the story profile and again the journey that Pickle A takes you through, and that's I think merely because the way the sugar balances out with the spicy pepper. This spicy pepper, the cayenne that's in there, is less spicy than Pickle B's habanero, And the habanero pickle is very spicy in Pickle B, and it overpowers a lot of the other flavors that I think would come out if a different pepper were to be used. So here we've got 2 new jars of pickles. Yeah, so a lot of stuff in Pickle A is floating to the top. So there's dried ingredients. I'm not sure, it could be sesame seed and clove and onion. The brine smells like it has a nice flavor, like some apple cider vinegar and some white vinegar as part of the brine. It smells balanced. The cucumbers, they do look a little translucent. So this could be a sign of aging. The product has been sitting on the shelf a little bit too long. I'm just going to pull a few out because I'm noticing also another thing about, that we had in these pickles, that there's some varying sizes in Pickle A's product that I don't see in Pickle B's product. Pickle B looks pretty uniform. What's an interesting fact in the pickle industry is that larger manufacturers, so they're pretty consistent. You're like, well, what do they do with all the rest of the inconsistent cucumber cuts? Well, they turn it into relish. So all those inconsistencies get turned into another product. So again, it's very, very green. It's like, split pea soup. It smells sweet. It smells a little watery. Nothing overpowering like I smell in Pickle A, but let's put some on a plate here. I do see some mustard seed coming up. That's a flavoring. It's a very common ingredient that you see in pickles, but you can see from these 2, Pickle A looks like darker, which again could be aging or the quality of the cucumber, but it does look more fresh and more natural than Pickle B's brine. So I'm going to taste one and see what we get. So this is Pickle A. That's good. So it's very sweet off the front, but I don't taste a lot of too much sugar. I taste a lot of apple cider vinegar, which is really refreshing because it's a nice way of balancing out too much sugar. If it's a sweet pickle, then there's no pepper in the jar, and I didn't see that in Pickle A or Pickle B. This is going to be called like a sweet pickle or a bread and butter pickle. People always ask me, why do they call it bread and butter? Well, during the Great Depression, people needed a food source, right? So cucumbers were fairly easy to grow. They were inexpensive to grow. So in between some bread and some butter, then you could put some fresh cucumbers. So it got the name bread and butter. So this is Pickle B is a very sweet pickle. I don't taste too much vinegar. I taste a little bit, but I taste a lot of sugar. And I'm not even sure it's real sugar because it tastes very candy-like, which is going to make me assume that it's some kind of like high fructose corn syrup. My hands are sticky from touching the brine. I think A is probably going to be a higher cost product because of the flavor balance that I'm getting and the ingredients that are included. And Pickle B is the less expensive, more manufactured product of the 2. Okay, Pickle A is $15.98 a quart, and Pickle B is $2.64 a quart. So that's a huge price difference. I would say that for my buck, Pickle A's flavor and texture in the cucumber and what I'm getting out of it as a sweet pickle is totally worth the money. So when you're out looking for pickles, look for fresh ingredients. Look for a balanced brine that gives you a nice nuanced flavor and story throughout your food journey. And last but not least, you want one that crunches. Everybody wants a crunchy pickle. So finding a pickle that has a brighter colored flesh, not neon green or yellow, but brighter colored flesh as opposed to gray or translucent or some other color is going to give you that crunchy pickle that you really want.